Guys, next step in your website, I want to show you how to change things, how to change some of your pages, what you see, your images. And we're going to teach you a couple ways to do this. Now this video, I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but we're going to show you a couple ways. So it could take a few minutes to do this. And I want to make sure that I show you all the ways that you can do this, because sometimes you have to use certain ways to achieve certain things. So there really isn't a best way to do these updates. Most of the stuff can be done the first way I'm going to show you, but sometimes you do have to do a few extra steps to get what you want out of your website. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump on in. You can go to sportspeedlab.com or wherever your triplethreattough.com. It works the same on both of these websites. Make sure that you're signed in. If you're not signed in, you can go to /WP-admin to make sure that you get signed in. And once you're signed in, you can come back to any page. But let's find a page. Let's pick a random page. Go to your bike fit page, for instance. And I'm going to show you here just the plain, easy, simple way to edit. Once you are logged in, you're going to see this banner up here. This banner has a few different options. This customize with CSS Hero, I would ignore that unless you have a web designer or specifically a web dev that really knows what they're doing. This is a little tool that I use to mess with the basic coding, the cascading style sheet, the way your website looks universally. We can tweak it and do certain things on certain individual pieces, but it's really something that you need to know coding. You need to know what you're doing here in order to really make it work for you. So you can ignore that one for the most part. But almost anyone should be able to make basic edits on your website using the Visual Builder here. We have built your website on a framework called Divi. Divi started just as a regular theme inside of WordPress, and it greatly expanded. And what Divi allows us to do is to set up pages and posts in a format that allows for rows and columns and modules. And once we jump into this, you'll see why. It looks like somebody's already made a few changes on this, so that's great. They've already started figuring out. But what happens is once you see what you want to edit, all you got to do is make sure you're logged in and enable the Visual Builder. Now, you see this lovely wheel that sometimes takes a minute or two to load, but once it's loaded, the main difference is you're going to see as you move around, it's going to highlight sections and columns and rows as you're moving around. And then there's this lovely purple button at the bottom. It's pretty actually self-explanatory once you're kind of in here. So what you're doing is you're looking for something that you want to edit and you're clicking on it. Pretty easy. And if I wanted to change this from biomechanical assessments, can't even say the word, but change it to assessments, it's literally click on it, add whatever, change whatever for a try, bike, you can put a dash here if we need it, like whatever you needed to do. You're literally clicking on it, making your edits, and then you're done. All you've got to do is click on this button and click save. And what that has done is now, once you get the check mark, saves any and all changes that you've made in here. Pretty self-explanatory. You can do that on any page that you see here. Pretty much go into anything, click on it, and make your changes. That easy. Now the problem is let me show you this too. This also works for the most part if you need to make changes for a tablet-sized view or a phone-sized view. Once you click this, the purple button that's on the bottom, you have options of how you're viewing this. By default, if you're opening it on a laptop, you're going to see it in this format, but you can make changes on each individual way that you view things and what it does here. So If you needed to change it just on the tablet view and smaller, you select tablet over here, find your thing, make your edit, click save. And once you got the check mark, you're good. That easy, that simple, for the most part. Same thing with cell phone size and smaller. Every option here applies to whatever option you have highlighted and smaller. So if I were to make a change here, it would apply to all of these. If I make a change here, it theoretically would apply to only tablet and smaller. And there's another thing, though, that you need to be aware of. Again, I said Divi was built in sections, rows, and columns. If you click this option here, you can actually see the sections, rows, columns, and modules laid out for you. Now this, for an end user isn't usually the most intuitive way to look at your website. This is basically how I see your website, though, when I'm jumping on and designing it and thinking about it and laying it out. This is what I use to kind of set the stage. And each area applies to something different. And so your header is part of, let me go back here. Can I click on it? There we go. This is considered your header. This gradient here with the red, the blue, and this text here. This is what I would call your header. It is in its own section, which is blue, and it's in its own row, which is green. It only has one column, and then it has a module inside of it. And that is what you see right here. Some of this stuff is labeled really well, really clearly, so you know what's going on. And if I wanted to, from here, I literally could click the little gear button under header text and edit, and it would change just like if I was typing the other way on your website. And when I click the check mark and click save, it would update it. Now, there you go. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. Now, the reason sometimes you have to view your website in this manner is because sometimes you got to make changes on certain individual items, and it's much easier to find it in this format than it is in any other format. And so sometimes you need to just, make sure that you're finding the right text under the right section, and it's just a lot easier to go in here, find what you're looking for exactly, and make sure that you can edit that easily. Also, it makes it easier sometimes to do it this way when you want to change a background. So, for instance, let's go to this Pro Bike Fit. These are the images that you've picked out. It is possible for me to, on here, click the gear for this row, which consists of 4 columns, and it gives me the 4 columns, and I can click one by one and know what I'm looking for. But it also, for me, is much easier if I come this way and know, okay, I'm looking at this column. I need to make sure that I'm working on the right thing. Boom. Going into content and background. Once I find that background, quickly editing it that way, choosing my new background, and clicking save. Again, this is 2 ways to do the same thing. Oops. Make sure I did that right. All right. Now, that is 2 different ways to kind of mess with your website. The third way is very similar, but it involves being on your dashboard. All your pages are here. So every page in your website, even ones we actually didn't end up using, but we started, exist under the pages section. And you can find your individual pages and edit them through this as well. So if you needed to go in and edit your contact us or let's go back to the Bike Fit, you can just scroll over it, click edit. It's going to open the Divi Builder right here. And this is where you're going to see the sections, rows, and everything again. And so actually you can make your edits here. I do a lot of work this way so that I can kind of see it all in one place and know where I'm at. But this is another way that you can go through and make sure that you're editing some of this. Again, most of this should be self-explanatory for any web designer as they're doing it. For instance, this is your button for one of your services, and it links to the booking widget at the bottom. That's what this means. So for them, it should be fairly easy to figure out and know, hey, if I need to make a change ever, where to find it, where to locate it, what to edit, that kind of deal. You can click update. The nice thing about doing this in the back end like this is you actually can go through, if you ever needed to, and find revisions. Theoretically, WordPress keeps track of things that you've edited. And I think it will do up to the last 50 revisions, so text changes, image changes, that kind of deal, per page. So if I made a change on this and then I realized like 3 days later, oh crap, I shouldn't have done that, but I don't remember what it originally says, in theory, we can, I didn't really make any changes, we can click browse and kind of go back and look at some of our past revisions. I don't know why it bailed on us. Look at our past revisions and be able to pick the revision. Now it's not always super, let's go back now. Now it's not always super intuitive unless you know web design and know that, okay, somebody changed the hover and changed what they're doing with the hover and what it affects. So there's nothing really in this version that it affects, but it'll highlight what changed, what is different. And if you know what you're doing, this is a good way to kind of sift through this and find what you need. It's not super great if you don't know code, but if you do, you should be able to find what you're looking for in revisions. But that's 3 different ways that you can edit your website. Divi also makes it super easy if you need to add things. On this bike fit, it looks like somebody had added already. Get that back up. That was me messing around. It looks like somebody had already added some kind of slider in here. And so all they did was, under this section, they started a new row, added 2 columns, changed the layout of the columns to be a 3-2. It looks like a 1/3, 2/3, excuse me. This is just how the columns are divided up. Gives you a lot of options here, and then inserted an individual module on what that looks like, and then began editing it from there. But I hope this helps. If you've got more questions on what it means to edit or something specific and how to edit something very specific, please let me know. I'll be glad to help you, glad to make sure that you know what's on your website and how to change some things as you need to change some things. But again, most things should be as easy, except, let me just highlight this, except for your menu structure. Most things should be as easy as clicking Enable Visual Builder, typing on it, finding the thing you need, typing on it, clicking Save. Done a lot of work. Oh, this is a good thing to cover. One disclaimer that I need to add to this is every once in a while, you're going to open up your Visual Builder and you're going to find like this grayed out area here. Now, we used this in the past as we started laying out your website to kind of give you an idea, and then we made changes. And so I deactivated a few sections here so that they wouldn't be seen as you decided to do things. And so we can actually go through, enable them, and they would show up, but they're not showing up to anybody because I deactivated them. That's why they're grayed out. But they do still exist. If you decide ultimately you don't need them, which you definitely don't need that was just a workout calendar, it's as easy as clicking a button to delete it, get rid of it. But we're not going to mess with that for now. But you will also see that in a couple other areas, and we've got to be very careful with them. I think it is under each individual coach. So sometimes when building your layouts, you want it to look a certain way, but when you switch to a tablet view or a cell phone view, how you hope it ends up doesn't always look right. And so what that has required me to do on a couple of these is actually recreate this multiple ways so that depending on what size device you're looking at it will determine what's actually shown. So here's a good example. On each individual coach page, when a laptop or a desktop is looking at it, you see this layout. But right under here, you see it's kind of grayed out. This is how it's laid out for a cell phone or tablet or smaller. I can't remember exactly which one. Yep, it's tablet. Tablet or smaller. And then the top, as you see, now is grayed out on the tablet view. The reason is because of how Divi handles some of these rows and columns. We wanted to do something very specific, and it wouldn't do it by default. So I had to recreate it and tell it in the coding that anything smaller than anything bigger than a tablet sees this, but a tablet and smaller sees this section down here instead. So be very careful when you see something grayed out. Please realize that sometimes they're grayed out because they were design choices, and sometimes they're grayed out because it is designed for smaller things to see it properly. And so that's why this exists twice on your website, is because we wanted to make sure tablets and smaller saw it properly. It's also why this piece is disabled on tablets and smaller, but not on desktops. It exists this way. So again, be very careful with those. If you were to come in and just delete this right now, that means it would mess up the view for tablets and cell phones. Don't do that. Bad, bad, bad. So anyway, I hope that helps. If you've got, again, any other questions, let me know.